this is the OpenSSF meeting, so all the all the typical code of conduct. Maybe we need to hit recording. And I think, Ben, can you hit the recording? Because I think
it records automatically.
Okay, cool. So this will be posted online on a public YouTube channel. So if you are not comfortable being recorded, please drop now or yeah, hide yourself, right? So I have only one item on the agenda, and I need some people inputs. So we started discussing with the OpenSSF doing a webinar on Trustify, and in the initial conversation we landed that Q2 maybe can be a good candidate to do so. But what I wasn't aware of, so I was imagining webinar as like a typical presentation, but the OpenSSF folks came up in saying that ideal format would be like more like a panel, so like a one MC and maybe 2 or 3 speakers, so like a 1 or 2 maintainers and 1 or 2 folks who can who can share a real use case. So I'm just thinking who we gonna include all here and how to organize all this.
So are you thinking specifically like justify internal use cases? Are we getting that kind of specific? And you want to see, I have to find out who would be available to talk about it. Is that the direction you're heading in? You want to have a different one?
Yeah. So Ben,
Okay.
do you maybe have any advice? You did something like this with GUAC and other projects, right?
Yeah,
So
I
what
think,
would be ideal for us to how to approach it?
yeah, so I would like if you have a sort of user story you can tell, whether it's internal or external, like kind of like a 5 to 7 minute, like here's the problem it solved for me, and then 10, 15 minutes of how it works, how you can contribute, what your roadmap is like, things like that. Um, that kind of format works pretty well. If I remember correctly, we did something like that with GUAC. We also did one for the CNCF at one point, which was a slightly different format. So I'm trying to remember which was which. But yeah, I think sort of like have the user story and then sort of the behind the scenes technical details and community aspects. I think that's a good approach.
So the user story doesn't need to be an OpenSSF member, right?
No.
Yeah, cool,
Okay.
cool. So maybe, yeah, I can do like an introduction to justify what we're doing, things like that, and maybe because our most demanding users are internal, so maybe find somebody from our project security to jump in and talk about how they're using it, right?
That sounds good. But let's talk offline about who that would be. There's been the usual like moving around and stuff. I'm not sure.
Cool.
We'll find out. Okay. And this is what it's an hour of their time recorded.
Yeah, so I think the sessions are scheduled for 45 minutes or an hour. I think if
Okay.
you go 30 minutes total, it's probably fine. And yeah, it'll be recorded and put on OpenSSF's YouTube channel, and they'll share it out through all their different venues. And
Okay, but this sounds nice actually.
yeah, and I think they'll
And
probably want to schedule like a brief tech check a day or two in advance just to make sure everybody's screen sharing and stuff is working. But
Okay.
and
But no slides, no decks, no the ask from them is because they're busy is low. Really, it's somewhat informal.
yeah,
It
it's
sounds
fairly
nice. Okay.
informal. Some slides or some kind of visual that they can show would be helpful just to give people something to look at.
Okay.
But it could just be like you know having them share their screen and walk through how they use it or something. Like it doesn't have to be anything deep and polished.
Okay. Perfect.
And about MC, who's going to drive the whole thing that's coming from the OSS from them, or
I think typically like they'll start it and then hand it off to somebody. So like, you know, whoever, I would say whoever's going to sort of do the technical part is probably fine to sort of be the MC for it and, you know, coordinate with the, you know, passing off and taking the, you know, presentation back from who's doing the user story. If you want to have somebody who's just dedicated to doing, you know, kind of being the host, like that's fine too. I
Okay.
don't think
I
it's
used to, if I would prefer someone else do it, but I used to do the Open Data Foundation show, the Ceph storage show for Red Hat. So I've done a lot of these, like, and emceed them and interviewed people and stuff like that. So I'm happy to do it, but let's see if we can find someone who's more involved than I am. Okay, cool.
Yeah, because you
So,
probably won't have a lot of live attendees, so you won't have to be doing a lot of like managing, you know, questions from the chat and
Q&A
stuff
kind
like
of.
that.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Okay, that's good to know.
The ones I've seen, it's typically been, you know, the presenters, a few OpenSSF people, and a few of their presenters' colleagues, and maybe like 2 or 3 people who are interested, and then most of the, you know, most of it comes from the recorded version. So.
Okay, cool.
Michelle, I can put you on this thread for planning, and we can go from there. And
Awesome.
yeah, just try to find somebody who is not maintainer, somebody who's more on the user side to like for that part of the story as well.
I have a few people in mind, but I have to see what their time, what they're like, what's going on with them. And any dates that you have, just send them to me so I can start reaching out. Like end of Q2, what are we thinking?
We don't have anything, so it's just now it's the Q. So it goes with the topic, and the Q2 is a CV and vulnerability kind of.
Okay.
So that's where we fit in. So we just said for now it's let's do it Q2. That's where we are.
Okay, and we can decide. All right, cool.
Yeah, that's all I had. Any other topics for today? Yeah, I think maybe we should look Zarp and GUAC one just to get a feeling how these things go and
Okay.
try to emulate something similar.
Good. Are we having a short meeting? My favorite kind.
I think so, yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. Take care, folks, then, and
Awesome.
talk to you in 2 weeks. Huh?
See you
Thanks,
in a bit.
everyone.
Bye now.
Thank you.